Global Edge originally launched in 1995. It started as a single web page well before the days of Google or even Yahoo, when finding resources online on a single topic was very challenging. And so the idea was to bring together in a single place international business resources. Obviously, in the years since then, the internet has changed, has grown, so has Global Edge. Currently, the website has been integrated into a number of leading international business textbooks, other books as well. I believe that Jim Foley, in his book, The Global Entrepreneur, talks a bit about Global Edge. We have been featured in the Wall Street Journal. About a year and a half ago, they had an article about Global Edge. We've received awards from the American Library Association and from other groups out there who specifically look at resource-type websites. The overwhelming majority of the content is available completely for free, and in fact, to all of you, because you are all from Michigan businesses, all of the content is free. The only thing on Global Edge that is at a charge is called Diagnostic Tools. One of those Jade talked about earlier. That's the company overall readiness to export tool. And that tool is at a charge, except that because of the STEP grant right now, we're able to make that tool available to all Michigan businesses free of charge. So, we will take a look at a number of different sections and components of Global Edge. A couple that I want to mention are the online exporting modules. The online modules, one of the series of which is specifically focused on exporting. And in fact, we use the Basic Guide to Exporting, work with the U.S. Commercial Services. If you don't already have a copy of this book, we've got copies for all of you today. And working with them, we essentially digitized this book. So you can either, look at the hard copy and read through it chapter by chapter, or you would be able to come to Global Edge and pick out modules on individual chapters and come and look at that. I mentioned the diagnostic tools a moment ago. We've got the export tutorials, the export FAQ that I think I mentioned previously. And then we've got lots of information, data, and resources by country, over 200 countries for all 50 states, 20 different industry sectors, and 11 regional trading blocks. And that's what we'll look at. So I think if you want to go to the website, Jade, it should be up there. And the internet in here seems a little bit slow this morning, so I guess you'll have to bear with us. This is the front page of Global Edge. We've got a lot of the website accessible just from here. If you look in the top right-hand corner, that's where you can, log into the website. You can create an account if you want. You don't need to. One of the benefits of having an account, we do have a monthly newsletter that is electronic that we send out to anybody who wants it, that provides email address, of course. But that is where you can go to either log in or create an account. We also have an international business terminology glossary. It's an exceedingly comprehensive glossary. In fact, several of the textbook publishers out there have contacted us and said, gosh, instead of reinventing the wheel and we have to, come up with all the terms and the definitions, can we just use your glossary? So that's a very useful tool. You can put in a number of things. So you see GDP. You can also, I think, if you just put in, for example, Africa, it'll show you, every term that we have that deals with Africa. And all of those, the contact us link, the user login, the glossary, and the home link, those are all available on any page so that you can kind of try and get where you're going. Also on the front page here, you see we've got the menu bars, Global Insights, and that's going to be where I talked about your states, your industries, your countries, your trading blocks are all there. We've got the reference desk, which has all of the, it's got the resource directory, it's got the online course modules, the export FAQ or export tutorials, as well as another link to the glossary, and that would be a link. The link that Jay demonstrated a minute ago is if you know there's a word that you're looking for or piece of a term, whereas if you come to the reference desk and you look at the glossary, there you could go and you can actually see, you don't have to know what you're looking for, you can go and you can see all the words that are in there. We've also got our, and we'll take a look at more of this stuff in depth. I want to get back to the overall architecture of the site, because often when you come to a website, particularly one that's as large and multi-layered as Global Edge is, it can be daunting just even trying to get a sense of where anything is, looking around, finding anything. So then we've got the knowledge tools, and those tend to be a lot of data comparison tools. We do have the MPI, looks at emerging markets. We've got some games on there. You can see how knowledgeable you are about different practices in countries around the world. If you know all the capitals or different customs barriers, things like that. We've got, going back up to that menu bar again, we've got Get Connected. That's where you'll find our blog. We have an international business blog that's maintained by our team. I should tell you that the team that works on this website, in addition to our full-time staff, is primarily undergraduate and graduate students at Michigan State University. Every year we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 students who work on this, who do the day-to-day work really of making sure that we're cleaning up any links that have broken, that we're creating the content for our blog, who really just keep the site up and running. I think they do a great job for us. The blog is one of the areas that I think they really enjoy working on. During the academic year, we tend to have a new blog post every day. This being the summer, we have far fewer students who are working for us over the summer, and we've got 2 or 3 blog posts a week. In this Get Connected section as well, you can come and find an archives of the newsletters that I mentioned. So if you want to go back, you're just finding out about Global Edge, you decide you want to subscribe to it, you get the newsletters going forward, you think they're interesting, you want to see what we talked about 6 months ago or even 6 years ago, you can come here and do that. And then we've got the Academy section, which we're not really going to look at in much detail today. That's a section that's really geared toward faculty members and students. It's got a lot of teaching resources, upcoming conferences that focus on international business topics academically. We've got syllabi, case studies, real teaching tools. So that's where things are. Going back to the home page, then in addition to that, you can see just from this main site here, if okay, you're looking for information on a trade block, you can get to a specific trade block right here from this home page. The same thing by country, by state, or by industry. If you want to see what's the blog look like, do we have a new blog post today? Is it a topic that interests you? Do you want to go there and read it? We've got the 3 most recent blog posts that show up on the home page. There's also an RSS feed that you can subscribe to, so you can get those to your inbox if you want. And then I think if you scroll down, We've got, you know, a way for you to, if you want to sign up for the newsletter, you can do that right on the home page. And then down here we have just general information about the center, the site, who we are. We've got a way for you to contact us. We're always looking to add additional resources to Global Edge. Just yesterday we got one, in fact, from somebody in Canada. It's a really great resource that compares different factors in Canada, demographic factors, economic factors, compares them to a number of different countries. That information we already had on Global Edge. That's nothing exciting. But what this new resource provides is a really in-depth analysis about each of those factors, why it's important, how it's changing over time in Canada, so that you can go to that resource, for example, and see not just the raw numbers, which you can see and we'll talk about elsewhere on Global Edge, but you can understand why that's important and how that might impact a decision to do business there. So this is the kind of the home page for you. There's one other thing that I think is kind of fun. If we scroll back up, and you see we've got these 3 big boxes here. Obviously you can click on these, so if you know you want to go to the export tutorials, you'd be able to click on that right from the home page. But you see we've got these arrows. And so if you click on the arrows and scroll, we've got all kinds of different things that we've highlighted, areas of our website that we know people especially come to visit, may want to see. Okay, and so, you know, I think we've got 6 or 8 of those in there right now. Update them from time to time, and so you can also click through those and, you know, explore new parts of the website that way. So I think we will start with Global Insights, because this is probably the largest section of the website at this point. Like I said, we've got information by trade block, by country, by state, by industry. We've talked a lot about Canada, so I think we'll pull that up. A couple of different ways you can get there. Probably the easiest is what Jade is doing, just using the drop-down menu. And then you can see, so when we get to this page, and it's going to look like this for any country that you choose. We've got a little bit of background information. We've got the real basics over in, you know, the right column. What language do they speak? Sort of important. What is the calling code? What's their currency? We've got a link for the currency converter if you want to see how does the dollar fare currently compared to that home country currency. Then over on the left side, on the right side, we've got some quick links here. We have any blog posts that we've had that have been specific about that country. We've got a map of it. The map of each country has the capital city flagged on it here for you, so you can see here, we've got Ottawa. It tells you the time zone that Ottawa's in, and then you've got the ability to kind of zoom in or zoom out on that country to see if you want to get into it really tightly, you can, or if you want to scroll out and see. Should show you, I think, where it is in relation to the rest of the world. But we'll skip that.
Really pale.
Okay.
You can't really see the other countries.
Okay. That's good. They are there. And then, we've got various tips for visiting, questions, did you know? So, did you know Canada contains 9% of the world's renewable water supply? Meetings in Canada are concise and to the point, and both of those got the ability to, find out other things. So then, continuing up that left menu there, this is really, if Global Edge is the meat and potatoes of, the workshop in terms of resources you can use, this is really the meat and potatoes of whether it's a country, a state, an industry. We've got an introduction to the country that's just an overall background. that's going to be, I'm sorry, that's going to be this page. And then if you go, for example, history, government, these are going to be text. This is going to be, this information comes from the CIA World Fact Book, and what we're aiming to do here is give you a little bit of background about this country. Where is it in, you know, relation to other countries? What are some important points in history? What's the system of government? Who is the president or the prime minister or the, you know, the head of state, the head of government, all of those things. Like Jade said, much of the information, the majority of the information on Global Edge is not content that we have created. It's content that we've aggregated from what we feel like are the best sources on the internet. So that's the reason, you know, we could do lots of research and we could write a history of Canada. But that's not really, you know, a good use of resources or time or anything. The CIA World Fact Book really provides an excellent and generally concise overview. That's what we use. If we go to the statistics, going back to that, this is where you can see some of the overall numbers. We've talked a lot about GDP, for example. We've got GDP on here as well as GDP PPP. We've got statistics on the labor force, on imports, on exports, on, I think if we were to go down a bit further, yeah, we've got the people, we've got geography, there's on energy usage. So an overall quantitative snapshot of the country in question. If we go back up, looking at some of these other sections here, I'd like to go to the culture section. And this is another section where we work with a partner. Our partner for this information is Executive Planet. And all they do is culture of different countries, and really specifically they focus on business or professional culture. So for example, under appointment alert, it'll talk about meetings. Typically, what do meetings in this country look like? Do meetings start on time? Do people sit and pay close attention, or are they just playing with their cell phones? They're really interested in the soccer scores. Who's going to attend these meetings? Who might speak at these meetings? You know, if we're looking at this in Japan, it's going to say that, you know, they're going to be much more likely to listen, to be quiet, to let you do a lot of the talking. When they do speak, it's probably not going to be the executive. It's going to be more of a middle manager who has prepared all of the data on this. So punctuality, dress, business dress. How should one be attired? How can you expect that your counterparts in this country would be attired? So this is, I think, a really useful and succinct way to get information, not about the country per se, but about what you can expect if you go there giving gifts. Do you need to take gifts? What type of gifts would be appropriate? Who might you give them to? Under what conditions might they be exchanged? All of that information is going to be covered in this culture section. I think we'll go back up. And let's look at the risk section. We'll look at all the rest of these in order now. COFAST is an agency that looks specifically at the risk of doing business in different countries. They look at almost every country in the world. I think they produce this information on something like 160 or 170 countries. And they're looking at political risk, they're looking at economic risk, they're looking at the overall risk climate, and they put together all kinds of information. So you can see, you know, Canada, for example, they suffered in 2009, their first recession since 1991, but activity rebounded in 2010. It was spurred by expansionary fiscal and monetary policy. They talk about a number of different factors, risks of expropriation. You know, what's the risk of you go into in Bulgaria, you spend $15 million building a new plant there. The plant is finished a week after you open it. The government comes in and they say, okay, this is ours now. COFAS can help you to understand what the risks of that type of activity might be. And they've got a real neat system they use. If you look, so they've got the actual assessment down here. But if we go back up, they have a rating scale, and I think if you click on the little it'll tell you. So it's A1. What does that mean? And then this will tell you, okay, it means the political and economic situation is very good. Provide a little bit more detail about that. Going on to the corporations. This is all of the corporations from the Fortune, I believe the Fortune 1000, maybe the Fortune 2000, that are headquartered, that have a headquarters in Canada. So what company are they? And we call it the global edge industry sector. The reason we have industry sectors is because there are a lot of different industries out there, and different sources have different definitions of kind of who falls into what industry. And so in order for us to create information and put things in a usable, searchable format, we had to come up with sort of industry sectors. And so we're telling you that, Manulife Financial is financial services sector. So if you wanted to get more information, comparable corporations, et cetera, from Global Edge, that would be the sector you'd go to. And then we've got data on the sales, the profits, the assets, the market value, and all of these are sortable. So you can look at corporations by alphabetically, you could look at them by their sector, you could look, if you want to see who's worth the most, you can do that. If you want to see who had the biggest profits last year, you can do that. But they're all searchable that way. And then, of course, anytime you see this symbol on Global Edge, this little rectangle with an arrow shooting off for it, that's letting you know that is a link. That's going to be a link to an external website. So if we were to click on this one, we would end up on the Royal Bank of Canada page, for example. Going down to trade statistics. This information comes from Peers. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Peers. They've got a lot of different types of data that are available. We have, what is available to us is aggregated data at sort of the highest level. So we're able to see, global exports by Canada. What countries did they export to? The value of those exports, did that value increase or decrease from the previous year, as well as the share that makes up. So you can see that in 2008 by Canada, global exports, their top country of export was the United States, and that made up almost 76% of all of their exports. We've got product information on there, as well as import partners, import products, and trade balances. One thing that I will mention, because we do occasionally, we've got contact information, you can contact us lots of different ways. A lot of our users take advantage of that, and not infrequently do I get a contact email that says, well, your trade statistics data is great, but it's a few years old. We know that. This is what we get from Peers. This is one aspect of Global Edge where, unfortunately, we don't have any control over that data. It feeds in directly from Peers to Global Edge. So I would say, this data can be very interesting, can be useful. At the same time, you probably want to use it with a grain of salt, knowing it is a few years old, and you might want to then try and do a little bit further research from some other sources before you decide, okay, well, Canada, you know, they've got only, you know, a 0.75% share to France, so that's not important. And then you find out that really they've been, you know, trying to build that market, and now in the past, you know, 3-4 years, it's increased up to 5%, something like that. Going to indices. So this is pretty fun. Jade said it's her favorite. I think a lot of other people think that it's a favorite too. What we do is we look at a lot of different rankings that are out there. And we put them together in a single place that looks at any number of aspects, how Canada, so in this case Canada, but any other country, ranks. And so you can look at manufacturing competitiveness, you can look at economic freedom. If we go back up to the top, the corruption perceptions index, I think, is sort of a fun one because it tells you how corrupt is the country, the government. You're going to need to pay bribes. How do things get done? When you click on this, so you can see that there are 183 countries overall that are ranked by this index, and that Canada ranks 10th of them. So Canada is pretty transparent. When you click on that, then you can see the top 5 countries. You can also see the bottom 5 countries. This is going to be for any of the indices, as well as where Canada ranks. So, you know, if you look, obviously, you know, North Korea, Somalia, Afghanistan, no real surprise that those are, you know, at the bottom of the list. You can also see by the colors in the map, the darker blue, the more transparent or the less corrupt the country is. So you can see that there's Canada. Right below it is the U.S. So, you know, we're pretty good, but compared to Canada, we're maybe not as good as we think. And then, you know, we tell you down here exactly what is being ranked by the various index. And then we've got a link to the original source. So if you want to go and see more of the data, you want to go back and look at previous years, maybe you want to understand a little bit more about the methodology, you can do all of that by looking at the original source. And then, of course, you know, the year. Some of these come out every year, in which case we update them every year. There are sources out there that, you know, might only come out every couple of years, or that there's a lag. You know, that now in 2012 is just the 2010 data available. So we always try and tell you, you know, the year of the data that's out there. So if we go back, we'll scroll down to resources. These are all of the resources available on Global Edge that pertain to Canada. And these are broken up into a few different sections. The first section is resources that are exclusive to Global Edge. Those tend to be things that either we have created or partners that we work with have created exclusively for Global Edge. In the case of Canada, you can see that what we have are 3 LexWork International documents on sales and distribution in different parts of Canada. One that's overall for Canada, one that's for Quebec, one that's for Ontario. These were put together by law firms, actually in partnership. I don't know, you all may know Jean Stokel at Foster Swift Collins and Smith, but her law firm works with this LexWork International group, and through her and through Foster Swift, we've been able to facilitate this partnership. So we've got these documents for a number of countries out there. Then this next section, this middle section, is government resources. And these are official government websites for the country. You can see their Commerce Ministry, if they've got an export promotion agency, an import promotion agency, any stock exchanges, the central bank, the official statistics office, and the main government webpage. These we give you just the links to directly. There's no description of them or anything because, you know, it should be pretty self-explanatory. And then as we scroll down further, these are other resources on Global Edge that are by that are specific to a country. So we've got some company directories, we've got news websites, and then we've got other resources. So if you're interested in agriculture and agri-food in Canada, obviously that would be a website you'd want to check out. The Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, there's a website that's specific to doing business in Quebec. All of these websites we try to vet at least once a year, go lay eyes on them, make sure they're still what they purport to be, make sure that they're still strong, valuable international business resources that we feel like the people who visit Global Edge would be interested in and would gain value by visiting. And we've got these for every country. Obviously, the depth and breadth of what is available is going to vary by country. If we were looking at, Burma, say, this is going to look a whole lot different. The plus side is I'm betting that, many more of you are potentially interested in doing business in Canada or Mexico or Germany or any number of countries that are highly and very well populated, as opposed to the Burmas and the Benins, which may not have as many resources. If we go back to our menu bar, we've got just one more link here, and that's going to be our country memo. Oh, bottom one, yeah. That's going to open as a PDF document, and this is a one-page document. The way that we started these was the idea that if you're getting on an airplane and you're going to this country and you know absolutely nothing about it, and while you're sitting on the airplane, you just want for 15 minutes before you fall asleep, you want to get some sense of, okay, what is the absolute minimum that I need to know about this country before I walk off the airplane? That was the idea behind this. So we've got just a few very, brief facts. The risk assessment in brief, location of the embassy could be useful, particularly depending on where you're going. Some of the rankings, the GDP, a little bit on the history, small map of the country, so you've got a sense of, what that looks like. Some of the things we talked about, head of government, head of state, the key websites, and then some of the country, the economic facts, the population, the GDP, exports, all of that. So I think that this is a pretty good roundup of the country information. Like I said, the states, the trade blocks, and the industries, all very similar. We've got the memos on all of those, the pages with resources. We try and have import-export data for the trade blocks. We've got a history of those, links to all of the original founding documents, all of that. So unless there are any industries, states, trade blocks that people would like to see specifically or have specific questions on, I'd like to move on to a couple of other sections of Global Edge.
Sarah, did you mention, I might not have been listening very closely, the country commercial guides and those things?
Just yes, so these quick links on the front page of each one, and that those are available for all of the countries for which, say, a country commercial guide is available. That's going to be right there on the front page of that country.
Have you guys seen country commercial guides prepared by the Commerce Department before?
No.
This links you to the PDF. So those are updated pretty much every year by Commerce employees. I'm trying to think of the word they use. And they're done by those employees that are in country. So the Commerce Department officials at the U.S. Embassy in Canada are mainly responsible for putting that together. It's called Doing Business in Canada. So the Canadian one, I think, is pretty lengthy. Again, as Sarah mentioned, some of the smaller countries, some of the countries that we have less economic and political ties with are going to be shorter documents. But those are fantastic. She talks about printing something off and bringing it on a plane with you. Those are fantastic documents that cover just about every aspect of doing business as well. They're really comprehensive, and again, they're mostly updated every year. So that will link you to that. The BBC country profiles are also pretty interesting, and the World Bank. So the Commerce Department ones, the country commercial guides, are designed for U.S. business people. The one done by the BBC is obviously going to have a bit of a slant because in that it's being prepared by the British government, right? So they're going to have a little bit of a different perspective, and some of them contain some information that the others don't have. But those are all really, really great documents to be able to access. And they're all available as PDFs for download.
All right. So I think let's go to the reference desk. And if we scroll down, so we've got 4 things here. We talked about the glossary, so I think we've covered that pretty well. If we go, we're kind of going to work backwards. We're going to go to the export tutorials. And this is a section that we just developed and launched it last fall, probably September or October. And I think we're pretty excited about it. What we tried to do, I talked about the basic guide to exporting. You're all going to get a copy of this. And this is something that we've been giving out. I think, we've given it to businesses even before, as Jade mentioned, her position is about 1.5 years old. I think we had been giving this out even before that. But one of the comments that we received from many businesses is, okay, this is great if you've got some idea where you want to start, but what if you know nothing? What if I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I know absolutely nothing? It's not basic enough. And so what we tried to do with this section on Global Edge was come out with, okay, if you know nothing, what are the questions that you might be asking? What are the answers to those questions? And resources to get more information on any of them. So you can see we've broken it into export readiness, government regulations, financial considerations, sales and marketing, and logistics. And then under each of those subsections, we've got a number of questions. All of these questions are clickable. You can click on it. So what are Incoterms? If you want to know what are Incoterms, I hear about them a lot, but I don't know what they are. You can click on that. Here is an explanation of what they are. We've got links to more information about them. You've got them broken down, the 13 terms, as well as the matrix that explains what they deal with, how they fit together. Do you need to include it on the quotation? What's going to be the cost? All of that. And so every one of the questions opens in this yellow box to give you more information and links. Sometimes those links are going to be able to take you to other places on Global Edge to get more information. Sometimes those links are going to take you elsewhere to other websites. That Incoterms one, for example, I think was going to take you to the International Chambers of Commerce. How do I find trade leads? Well, I want to go overseas, but how do I even do that? This one is going to take you to the trade lead section of Global Edge of the resource desk, which then in turn has a number of different resources listed depending on country, region, all of that. So I think that for this exporting tutorials or exporting FAQs, that's really what you need to know. The important thing is that it is there and to understand sort of how that interacts with the rest of the website, as well as with the basic guide to exporting. That that this isn't an either or. That you shouldn't think, okay, well I'll just go online and get this information and not need to use the basic guide. The basic guide is really the next step after that. We then have online course modules, and I mentioned those briefly. We've got about 65 of them. Our most popular ones tend to be either doing business in, which look at doing business in different countries and regions around the world, doing business in Latin America, doing business in China, as well as our exporting modules. The exporting modules, each module is a chapter of the Basic Guide to Exporting. You click on it, these are Flash-based modules, and they've got audio so you can listen. They've also got text if you just want to read. The exporting ones are also available as downloadable podcasts. All of the others you would need to be at a computer and actually, watch or listen to. But the exporting modules are available as downloadable podcasts if you just want to, plug them onto your iPod, and take them on the road with you or whatever. And then we'll look back at the resource directory. Jade had that open just a minute ago. Like I said, this is how Global Edge started. When Global Edge started, it was only the resource directory. The idea was to bring together in a single place all of these resources before the powers of Google were able to do just that. And so we've broken things into these different categories. We've got, as you can see, rankings. We've got section on trade law, trade leads, travel and living abroad, outsourcing. So you've got to just have kind of a sense of what are you interested in. If you're interested in regional trade agreements, for example, we can go to that section. And then that's going to show you all of the resources that we have on those regional trade agreements. And you've got a description of it, you've got a link to it, and then this also lets you know the last time anybody from Global Edge looked at it, confirmed that the link is still correct, confirmed that the description is still an accurate reflection of the information on the website, all of that. Links do change. Every single week we run a report and have to go and chase after links that have moved, pages that have broken. Sometimes resources just disappear. If you ever find anything like that, feel free to contact us and let us know. We do try and chase after all that stuff, but if we check them all on Wednesday and then something goes away on Thursday, it is possible that you could find a broken link from time to time. I think the last section that we'll look at is the knowledge tools. Questions? Thoughts? Okay. We'll look at the knowledge tools. And here there are a couple of things that I really want to look at. First of all, the MPI. And this is one of the the International Business Center created pieces of research or information for Global Edge. This is research that we do in-house on emerging markets. And what we look at are all of these different factors, the market growth rate, the economic freedom, the country risk. We look at that for all of these different emerging markets. And we put together this index, the Market Potential Index, that ranks how those countries compare to one another. So if you're thinking about doing business in an emerging market, what is the market potential in that country or in neighboring countries, other emerging countries, emerging markets in different parts of the world? And you can see that, from Singapore to Egypt to Mexico, where they show up. And then you can also, so this matrix shows you for a single year that data. You can also see how that compared to, historically how that's done. So for example, let's see, I think. So this year-to-year comparison will let you see, so Singapore is pretty solid, pretty solid bet. But if you look, for example, at Egypt, Egypt wasn't even on here for a while. It came on at 21, then it was all the way up to 16. It had been 16, 17. Then, of course, last year you have a lot of upheaval in Egypt. It falls down to number 20. There are some other examples of that. You can see, Brazil was all the way down at number 23 for a couple of years. Then it moved up to 16. Now it's all the way, up to number 11. So a couple of different ways of looking at and using that data that I think is interesting and useful.
What do these graphs?
I'm sorry?
What do they indicate?
They indicate the market potential in any of the emerging countries that are listed
So
there.
you're claiming
There, that's
Singapore.
This is actually really similar to the sort of tool that we're going to talk about in just a minute that you guys are going to create for yourselves. So this says out of all of these 20, there's 26 emerging markets, Singapore is the best one to do business. Well, that's not going to be true for every industry, for every company, yeah? But it's ranked to the top because based off of market size, the growth rate, the intensity, the consumption, and all of these factors, we bring all of these factors together and then we average them out, and that's where it pops up. So if you're looking at market size, for example, this is the market size indicator for each of these 26 countries. Obviously the largest market based on population, right, your largest potential market across industries is going to be China because it's the largest country, right? So it receives a score of 100 because it's top. Now it's not necessarily top in market intensity, okay? So you can go to these arrows and click, and you can arrange this all by market size, and it'll arrange these, all 26 countries, depending on market size or population. Yeah? Or you can arrange it by any of these factors and it'll rearrange these. But what it's doing, it's weighting each of these factors differently. And it's our secret special formula, and you can't see all of that here. But based on looking at all of these factors and weighing them differently depending on how important we as creators see that factor, we've put them in this order. So this is very general. Right now we're actually in the process of doing this for industries. So the first one we're going to launch is going to be automotive. So if you're involved in the automotive industry, it's going to rank countries of opportunity based on the automotive industry. So it's getting a little bit more specific. So again, it doesn't tell you that everyone in this room should be doing business in Singapore. It says Singapore is a really good opportunity based on these factors. Any questions about that? Does that clear up kind of what you were asking?
No, but the China 100 means what?
So it means that that's the biggest market size.
So 100 is the highest number?
Right.
So 100 is the benchmark for each of these. So you'll find 100, this is the highest for the market growth rate. Hong Kong is the highest for the market intensity.
So the overall
And then
ranking,
everyone else is ranked according to...
So this is the overall score. So using the weighted average for each of these factors, you arrive at an overall score. And then they're ranked way over on the left side by, the overall score. So Singapore's overall score is 63, which is higher than any other country, and so therefore it has the rank of 1. But if you want to go back, you can look at these, historically for, I think, about 15 years. So you can look and you can see not only, okay, so this year Singapore is 1 and its score is 63, but maybe, 3 years ago, maybe it ranked 3rd, but its overall score was 68 and just everybody fell. So if you go in and open up the different ones, not just doing the year by year, comparison that'll show you how they ranked, but opening up the full MPI and looking at the scores and the factors and everything, you can see how various factors or overall scores have changed over time.
and this is up to last year, 2011.
Yep. This is the one. So we put this out in 2011, which means that this is going to be 2010 data for the most part, because there's always that lag with data. So, other questions? All right. So let's go back to the knowledge tools. And I think that, so DIBS is an academic tool. So we're not going to look at that one. Diagnostic tools we're not going to look at because we talked about that, what it is, the fact that you all, if you're interested, are able to have access to that free of charge. It's one that you've got to log in to do different things, and because it's all these questions, it'll be, you know, what you really need to know is where it is, the overall tools that it offers, and then like Jade said, if you're interested in that, you can talk to her and we can set you up with access, and that'll include additional, you know, instructions and everything.
So
for.
You each have a brochure, a Global Edge orange and blue brochure in your folder. Within that Global Edge brochure, there's a little flyer, a little insert. If you open the orange and blue, you should have like a little tiny card, and that talks more specifically about the diagnostic tools, the four of them that exist, and why you would use each tool.
Yep. So I think the last thing that we'll look at is the interactive rankings. And this one is kind of fun if you're trying to understand data, how countries compare on any number of factors. You can look at either states or countries. We'll look at countries. And then you've got a lot of different things to choose from. You can look at GDP growth, you can look at literacy rates, you can look at energy use. I think we've got probably 30 or 40 different factors in here that you can compare. So then whichever one you want. Yep. So, you know, the current account balance, then you can see on a map what that looks like. As you scroll down to the bottom of that page, you can also see in graphical format what that looks like. So, you know, obviously the country on the left is going to have, you know, the most, and I think, are we as far left as, yeah. And so each one of them, you can see what the country is. You can also see the year of the data. For this, what we've done is, it is a little bit of apples to oranges comparison. Not all countries have this data available in the same years. So some of them may be very quick to get that data out there, to get that to, say, the World Bank. And so we're able to put that up, and World Bank is able to put that up right away. Others might have a lag of 3 or 4 years. And so what the World Bank has done, and what we therefore have done, is to show the most recently available data in a specific indicator for all the countries, but show the year for that. So that is something that you need to watch out for, but it does give a sense, you know, obviously a country that's down here is unlikely to jump up and be, you know, here within a year, so it does still give you some basis for comparison. And like I said, you know, there are probably 30 or 40 different rankings there. So I think that that is a pretty good overview of the website, the types of information that you'll find, the architecture of it so that hopefully you can get where you're trying to go, and some of the features that I think will be either the most interesting or the most useful to you. Are there other questions, anything in specific, in particular that you'd like to see, anything else?
I have a question about a specific data set for a specific country that we can pull up. Quiet group.
All right.
Merchandise
Wow.
Actually, merchandise export is pretty interesting if you click on that one. It's actually one of the bottom ones.
Within here?
Yeah, we'll pull it up. You can see by country. We'll do graph merchandise exports or imports.
Right there, Jane.
Second to the
Right.
bottom.
Yep.
But on the graph, it shows which countries are leading in that category.
buys all of China's exports.
Anything else?
Alrighty. Well, hopefully you'll go and you'll use Global Edge, and you know it'll be very useful for you. And as I said, if you've got questions, concerns, resources, anything, please feel free to contact us. I think you've also got contact information for us directly if you would